Good afternoon to you, snooker fans, and welcome to this latest episode of the 15 Red podcast with myself, Scott McCarter, here in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland. And I'm joined from London to talk about a marvellous week in Wuhan in China by my co host, Kelly Barker. Good afternoon to you, Kelly.
Good afternoon, Scott. How are you doing? Yeah, it's another very good week in Wuhan, and yeah, well done to Xiao Gudong. He's making a habit now of it over there. So yeah, really good stuff to watch and enjoy. And yeah, really good tournament, I thought.
Yes, well, just one bit of business two bits of business to clear up from last week. I'll get them out of the way now. The answer to my trivia question from last week, who was Ronnie O'Sullivan's last maximum opponent, was Alan Taylor. Was the opponent on the previous maximum before O'Sullivan made the two in Saudi Arabia. Alan Taylor, and then the bit of business that we forgot about, or we ran out of time, I should say, was the retirement of the great Jan Verhaas, one of the greatest referees of all time, certainly in my top three of referees for all the time I've been watching the game and long before that as well. But a tremendous referee, and I know he's been quite a friend to you, Kelly. So, do you want to say something in praise of the great man?
Yes, he's been, like you say, one of the top, certainly the top three referees of all time, and arguably the greatest. I haven't got enough good words to say about him. And as you say, he's been a good friend to me over the years. In 2008, he actually gave me a backstage tour of the Crucible, which was quite a thrill at the time. You know, I got to go onto the floor and sit in the player's seat. And it was fantastic memories. And he's been a really nice friend. He used to go into the graduate and we had drinks and stuff like that. And he was just a really all-round top guy and an absolute top referee. I mean, I think it's a mark of the man that Ronnie O'Sullivan doesn't respect that many people, but I think Jan was one of those people who he knew he had to toe the line if Jan was repping the match. So yeah, many congratulations to Jan on an absolutely stellar refereeing career. I
Yeah.
think he did 5 or 6 world finals. And but we're not losing him completely. He's still going to be an assessor around at the tournaments. So he's been doing very good work with that over the last couple of years. So long may he continue being around.
Yeah, well, without wishing to be too morbid or somber on the day that's in it, when I think of Jan, I always think of Paul Hunter's three Masters finals because Jan refereed all three of them, and I know he'd spoken himself, but he described them previously as some of his most memorable matches. But so a tremendous referee and one who's very widely respected in the sport and very well sort of he took no nonsense, Jan, when he was reffing, did he?
Absolutely. He wasn't quite as strict as John Williams many years ago, I seem to remember. But I don't think you dared to breathe if John was around. He was the very old school, and but I think Jan will be remembered just as much in that that spectre of real legends of the refereeing circuit. And Snooker's lucky to have had him all this time, refereeing at the top. And like we say, hopefully I'll still see him around at the tournaments because I would like to buy him a pint if I do see him and say, well done on your career and best of luck for the future.
Yeah. Well, I think without any further ado, I think we should we'll move on to today's main business, I suppose, and we'll talk about Wuhan and Xiao Guodong's progress from the quarterfinals onwards in a moment. But the first thing we should mention is there's been another maximum.
Yes, lots going on all the time, and I think Xiao Gudong started. He was in the very early session in round one, so it was a sort of in the middle of the night our time, and Xiao made a 147 against Mink to win 5-0. So it was a very good start for him in that tournament. And also, there were two actually last week. So they come in thick and fast. We also had Chaya Unnu make his second 147 in back-to-back tournaments because he made one in Saudi Arabia the week before. And he also made one in a 5-1 win over Pang Zhu. So there's always mention that the pockets are a bit tight, a bit more generous in China, but I just think the standard now is such that we used to not get 147 in half a season, and now we're getting more than one in some events. So quite some going there.
Well, here's a stat for you about maximums. There were 8 in the whole decade of the 1980s, from Steve's first in 1982. And I think, are we now on 8 this season already? Or 7?
At least 7, I think. I haven't got them written down in front of me, but I think it's at least 7. So yeah, I think, and we thought the 90s were good at the time. So yeah, having all this lot now, it's incredible, really. Yeah, you almost expect at least one in every tournament now. You used to think the high break prize would go, oh, if he gets a 140 plus, that's a good marker. But now I think you have to get a 147 if you really want the high break prize. So
Yes,
yeah. So
but
moving on with
there were plenty of other little narratives going on, including a certain young Englishman that did very well.
yes, I think Stan Moody deserves all the praise. He didn't win the tournament in the end, but I think he deserves all the praise and credit. He reached his first quarter final in a ranking tournament, which is a massive progress for him. And you could see last season he was getting there. I think he reached 3 or 4 last 16s, but to get to a quarter final now, and he didn't just get there. He was very. He beat some good players on the way, and he beat Ding Junhui in the last 32, I think it was, which led to the dreaded Ding curse being put up on him in the next round. But he beat Barry Hawkins in the last 16, 5-0, and absolutely blew the curse out of the water. So and he didn't just beat Barry. He won 5-0, played absolutely brilliant, and he said that's the best he's played in the tournament to move through to his first quarter final. And wow, what did you make of him then, Scott?
Well, well, I was delighted for him because, you know, without wishing again to be too parochial, I do think we like to see a bit of local British talent, young British talent coming through, and we haven't got that much of it really. So it was really nice to see Stan doing well. Like, I remember he was at the shootout like years back. Do you remember? And not that I'm a great fan of the shootout format, as you know, but I liked him then. I thought, here's a good young fella. And he's done extremely well since obviously last 16. For me, the highlight of last season was the last 16 in Northern Ireland. So, we've done very well. So great progress, and let's just hope he can continue.
I think he will as well. I think he's got his feet on the ground. I think he goes everywhere with his dad, and he's got a very good coach in Neil Johnson who's really nurtured him. And yeah, the sky's the limit for this boy. I think. We don't want to put him on a pedestal too early, but he's by far the best of the young British players. As you say, we haven't got that many anymore. I think off the top of my head, I think Jackson Page is probably the next of the really good youngsters who's been around some time himself now. And there's a couple of young Welsh lads who I like to keep an eye on, Liam Davis and Dylan Emery. I think they could really go far in the future. But at 18 years old, Stan is the one for me who is really making progress. And I'd love to see him at the Crucible one day. And I think it's only a matter of time before he gets there.
Yes. Anyway, shall we go through the quarterfinals in detail then?
Yes, I've just made a couple of notes on the last 16 because I thought they were worth a mention. But Gary Wilson beat George 5-4 in the last 16 in a very high quality game. But I just wanted to flag up that it's really not been the start to the season that Judd would have wanted, really.
No.
This time last year, he'd won a couple of tournaments. He won in Shanghai and Saudi last year. This year, he's got no trophy on the table. And I mean, I think that's a sign of how good he is that we're sort of worried slightly for Judd that, oh, we've had 3 tournaments and he hasn't won any of them. But it's not what it was last season so far. So he's based out in Dubai and Hong Kong these days. So we remain to be seen whether he comes over for the English Open and the British. I would think he would, to be honest. I think he'll want to get his arm going and get some confidence if he needs it. But it was a very good win for Gary. And yeah, he went on to the quarterfinals. And the first quarterfinal was Xiao Gudong. He beat young Stan Moody 5-2. So after Stan's great run, his levels did drop in the quarters, I have to say. But he beat the Ding Curse and reached his first quarterfinal. So it was a very, very good week overall. But Gudong, defending champion, looked very solid, moving through to the semi-finals.
Yes, just another point on Godong as well. Before the semi final, he wasn't on the main table, which I thought was a bit harsh on the defending champions. But he never let it bother him at all. He was just absolutely serene. He was
I agreed,
marvellous.
actually. I agreed with that. I thought, because at the same time for the quarterfinal, it was Mark Williams against Zhang Gander, and I thought it was toss of a coin which game would have given to the defending champion and would have given to table one. But I thought as defending champion, Zhao might have been given the nod there. But it wasn't to be. But as you say, credit to him for not complaining at all. But as we say, at that same time, Mark Williams beat Zhang Gander. Williams was very solid, 450 plus breaks. And never really looked like threatening, really. 5-1 to Williams in the end. But the other quarterfinals were really interesting. Mark Allen beat Si Jiahui, and you'd have been interested in this bit of a return to form for Mark Allen. It's a really good quality game, this one. Could have gone either way in the end, but Allen looked good. Snooker put some good snooker together this week, and he clinched the decider to go through to the semis, and some much needed ranking points and confidence for Mark there.
Yes, like as you can imagine, last season wasn't exactly cock a hoop, if you like. So you sort of think to yourself that not that he's finished, but you sort of think, are his best days possibly coming to an end? But he said he sort of answered that. And, he did play extremely well against Sergio Way there. He was absolutely, solid. Nothing terribly spectacular. No, he did. Was it there? I think it was in that match. He did try. He was on reds and blacks for a significant period. We all started to get rather excited, but I think then he went up for a blue, so that killed it. But no, he played very well, and through to the semi-finals he was. First semi-final since last November, I think.
Wow, that just says what a bit of a rut he's been in. Of course, he has done slightly better in non-ranking events. He won the non-ranking Riyadh Invitational before Christmas, and I think
Yes.
he did reach the semis of the Masters, maybe. But yes, in ranking events, this was good to see from Mark, and I hope he goes further on for the season because I like to see him playing and doing well. But on to the last quarter final, and it was Gary Wilson who's beaten some good players and coming to good form this week after he had a torrid time over the last 12, 18 months. But Gary beat John Higgins 5-3 in the final quarter final. Like I say, it was good to see Gary playing well again. A 1-2-8 and a 90 were the highlights. To see him through against a semi-final against Mark Allen. So yeah, was lots to look forward to before these semi-finals, Scott.
So I think, obviously, personally, I would love to have seen a duel between Mark and John there, but Gary, as you say, was very, very solid, and he's tremendously aesthetically pleasing, Gary, to watch. He's smooth. He's made, I think, six maximum breaks. He can score with the best of them. He's a tremendous player. Obviously, a former, you know, three-time ranking event winner and former World Championship semi-finals. So he's definitely got credentials. And, it was great to see him playing like we know he can again because, as Dave Henton has mentioned, other people have mentioned, he can get very down on himself. But actually, there's there's no evidence that he's actually a bad player. He needs to tell himself that he is a very good player. He's now back in the top 16 as a result of his run this week. Not Sean Murphy, incidentally, but so the green shoots of recovery are there. Now you can never judge one man in one tournament, but the signs are positive, and I think he needs to take the positives.
Absolutely, he's his own biggest critic, as Gary always has been, and
Yeah.
but this week has proved that what's still in the tank if he gets the best out of himself, and I was glad to see him do so well because, like you say, he's very good to watch. I enjoyed him immensely this week, and yeah, it was a really good game against Higgins. I enjoyed watching that. Good standard throughout, I thought. On to the semi-finals anyway, and the first one up was Xiao Guodong beating Mark Williams 6-3. And it was defending champion Xiao carried on his quiet but impressive defence of the title to move into the Wuhan final for a second year running with the 6-3 win. At 3-all, it looked to be going all the way, but at 4-3 up, he won a long eighth frame to go 5-3, and which felt like a big lead after what had gone before. Then, just as it looked to be going 5-4, Zhao stole that frame with an excellent clearance to win 6-3. So that was Zhao into the final for a second successive year, and good value for it.
Very much so. I mean, he was definitely the better player. Certainly post interval, you would definitely say he was the better player. Um, Williams, of course, was trying to become the oldest winner of a ranking event, trying to take the late Ray Reardon's record, but a tremendous performance from Zhou. I don't know where exactly he lives in China, but I think Wuhan is fairly close. So therefore, that might explain why there's something about it that he likes. But no, he played very well, particularly as I say, post interval against Williams, and ended Williams's hope of taking that record. Not that Williams is worried, you know what Willow's like, but you know.
Absolutely. But yeah, I thought that was a good win for Zhao as defending champion. And he waited to see who he would play in the final. It was Gary Wilson against Mark Allen. And this match promised to be close, but despite a 1-3-5 in frame two from Mark Allen and 2-all at the interval, it was Wilson who was the the better scorer and seemed to have more in the tank to pull away for a 6-2 win and a place in the final. A 1-1-3 was the highlight from the Tyneside Terror, plus 3 other 70-plus breaks to set up a final against defending champion Gudong. And I know you're a Mark Allen fan, Scott, but Gary was good value for this win and his place in the final.
Oh, I mean, you can't take that away from Gary. I mean, Mark's level compared to against CGOE was just completely different. So yes, I mean, yes, as you say, the 135 in the second frame, but apart from that, Gary was the better man on the day, and actually, I think it was something like 6-1 on the head-to-head in Mark's favour. So I was, confident as I always do before semi-finals and things. I was looking on Q Tracker and I was rather hopeful, but then again, the stats can deceive at times, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, Gary's really come back to good form this week, and it was good to see. Not an easy route to the final either. So yeah, well done him. And it threw up an interesting final. But as you say, Gary reaching the final has bumped him back up into the top 16, and Murphy moves out of the top 16 for the first time for almost 20 years. So he's got a little bit of work to do for ranking events for the rest of the season. But moving on to the final, and this was a classic in the end after lots of errors in the first session, but it was Xiao Gudong who finally prevailed and a decider to become only the 4th player to successfully defend their maiden ranking title after John Parrott, Mark Allen and Wilson himself. Xiao led 5-4 after the first session to set up a thrilling final evening, which lived up to every expectation. Wilson won 3 of the first 4 in the evening and looked to be making his move to go 8-6 up. But Xiao stepped up brilliantly after that to take 3 in a row to lead 9-8 before we went to a decider. And Xiao won the 140 grand first prize, all those ranking points. He goes up to number 8 in the world. And yeah, we can only say well done, Mr. Xiao Gudong, because like you say, not many players defend a title these days, let alone their first one.
Yes, I mean, that is quite a rare feat that only, as you say, only 4 have done it. John Parrott in the 1989-1990 European Open. Obviously, Gary Wilson, the Scottish Open in 2020. 2020 or 2022 and 2023. Mark Allen in the World Open in 2012 and 13, and obviously Xiao Guodong the Wuhan Open now. So very good performance from Xiao. I mean, he's a tremendous player. All right, he's not exactly, he's not no Sullivan or a Trump in that sort of aesthetically pleasing way. But I actually sort of like when they're not as aesthetically pleasing because they just get on with it. They don't, obviously Barry Hearn always says it's an entertainment business. But you know, not every frame has to be sort of 1-4-7s and century breaks and so on. So like that final I think was a perfect final in a sense because you had a sort of rather turgid first session, but great improvement when it really mattered. Well done, Jay, I think.
Absolutely. That evening session, for anybody who didn't see it, it's well worth finding and watching it back because the standard was sensational. We all think, oh, if it isn't Jord or Ronnie or one of the other top players, then it may be not as good. But it was tremendous between these two. And as you say, Xiao isn't as natural, it certainly isn't as naturally talented as some of the young Chinese players. You think of Xing Tong, for example, there, but I enjoy watching him play, and when he gets his scoring boots on, he really is as good as anyone else, I think. I'd be interested to see what his century count is as a professional, but I enjoyed watching him, and we'll be watching him a lot more this season because I think this win guarantees him in quite a few, it gets him into at least the first two of the Players' Series, I would imagine, Champion of Champions as well. So lots more to come from him.
Yeah, well, he's up to number 8 on the 2-year official ranking list. I don't know where he is on the 1-year list at the minute, but so like his ranking's pretty safe for the next 2 seasons. Because the points for his first Wuhan only start to come off next season. Am I right?
Yes, that's right. So yeah, he's sitting pretty at number 8 now, and as you say, he'll be there for some time. He's booked his place in the Grand Prix and the Players, and he's probably not far off from being guaranteed for the Tour Championship. So good stuff from him, and we'll look forward to the next tournament. Just a couple of things also, Scott. There was other snooker going on this weekend, and we must say well done to Bai Lu, who beat On Yi in the UK ladies final.
Oh yes, I didn't actually see it, but I did actually sort of stumble across the stream on Facebook, I think, and she played reasonably well.
She
Very
is.
good
I mean,
indeed.
I think Bai and On Yi, they are arguably the best two. I know Mink will have a bit to say, and Rihanna's still going. But I think Bai is the best of the ladies to come through. And she's done back-to-back world and UK doubles now, last year and this. So that shows her dominance, really, of the ladies' game. And, who she did make strides on her first season on tour, on the main tour last season. So it would be good to see her do a little bit more in the upcoming tournaments. Yeah, and also the first Q Tour event took place this weekend as well in Sweden, and Hamed Mir won it. He beat, I think, Patrick Whelan in the final, 4-2. And that's a nice win for Hamed, who does have ambitions to get back on tour, he says. And thought it was interesting in the quarter-final of that one. He beat Alfie Burden, who he now runs a snooker club with. So I'm sure that was an interesting game. Don't know whether the loser has to go back and iron the tables.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been a good match to watch, I'm sure. And well done, Hamed. Because do you know what? I think he's got some talent, and I still think he's got something to give if he can get himself back on the main tour. So well done him.
Well, I think it's just that the standard on the main tour is so high these days that it can be very, very difficult to get to the highest level, and therefore it's just it's good that he can win on the Q tour to try and get himself back on.
Absolutely. You look at the. I mean, I had a look at the draw at the beginning of the weekend, and the amount of players who on the Q Tour now who are good players. You got people like Ashley Carty, Ashley Hugill, Barry Pinch is still there. Obviously Alfie Burden, Hamad Mir. These are all players who are still, you know, maybe they're not always quite good enough on the main tour these days, but certainly on that secondary tour, they all give each other a good game, and whoever comes out on top in this Q Tour by the end of the season is going to be well worth a place on tour next season, because it's certainly doing it the hard way. It's not easy at all. But I think that wraps up our tournaments. But before we go, we've got one bit of news, and come the Northern Ireland Open next month, Scott. Is it next month or November? You will be there.
Indeed, God willing, I intend to be there on the evening of the semi-final. For the evening semi-final, best of 11 match, of course, on October the 25th. So, yes, first time back at a live tournament for 8 years, believe it or not. So, I will report back in due course as to, well, people will see how the match went, but I'll be able to give a report of what it was like on the ground, as it were. But no, tremendous, tremendously exciting to be able to actually go and see it again. I think I'll have to remind myself how big the table actually is.
Well, I'm sure it'll be fantastic, Scott. And it's such a great venue, the Waterfront, and really good tournament. I hope for your sake as well, it might be a Mark Allen, John Higgins semi-final. That would be one to savour for you, especially.
Well, that would be marvellous. No, but we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the Northern Ireland, the qualifiers, I think, begin on the 4th to the 7th. We've got the Xian Grand Prix qualifiers today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And then the Northern Ireland qualifiers after that, then the English Open, then the British Open, then the International Open qualifiers at the end of the month and into early October. So we've got a busy old period coming up.
Absolutely, Scott. And I think we might be, it's going to be busy, but I think we might not be back now until after the English Open. So we'll be back in a few weeks' time reporting on that. So, yeah, enjoy these qualifiers this week.
Yes, as Kelly says, we will not be back during qualifiers because obviously, basically, there's nothing definitive that happens. So we'll be back, once the English is over and we have a definitive outcome. But just before we sign off for the day, we've got a few months or so yet, and I wanted just to give you this week's trivia question, and the question is, in 19, or rather, we've had two maximums, right? Who was the first player to make a second maximum break? Who was the first player to make a second maximum break? So I'll leave you to brew on that for a few weeks, and
Oh,
we'll be back after the English.
wonderful. Well, enjoy the qualifiers and the English coming up. And then I'm sure with the busy calendar, then we'll be back to weekly podcasts. And I'll look forward to it, Scott.
So will I, Kelly. No doubt we'll be in contact with each other during the English and so on. So, but I'll look forward to seeing you back here afterwards.
Absolutely. And thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you soon.
Bye all.